Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Saturday episode of Light Sports Ramble. This is the episode that we call the Red Light Rant. This is where Evan and myself take a topic from this week or something that just grinds our gears, and we discuss it with a full, passionate opinion. I am Troy Otradovic, as always, joined with Evan Watalison. Evan, today we're going to discuss a topic, and it isn't necessarily a hot topic in sports, but rather it's just one of those things that we shake our head at. And that's using the terminology with athletes to label them as great, to label them as a superstar, and to label them as elite. And so for this show, I decided that I wanted to go to Webster's Dictionary and get the true definitions of these three terms. And so I'm going to start with the term elite. And based on Webster Dictionary, this is the term and definition for elite. Those people who have the most wealth and status in a society, the most successful or powerful group of people, a person who is a member of an elite, a successful and powerful person. That is the definition of elite. The definition of great is very general, and it even says that in Webster's Dictionary. It's used as a generalized term of approval. That's for great. And then superstar is defined as an extremely famous and successful performer, athlete, etc. So there you have it, Evan. There are the three definitions based out of Webster's Dictionary. So take it away, bud. How are we going to start this rant?
Well, the thing that, I find irritating, it just seems like, people and people in the media, they just kind of throw the terms around way too frequently, way too often. And I was following a Twitter conversation last weekend, and this gentleman who's give him credit, huge Seahawks fan, and his team just won the Super Bowl, so he's excited. But he's having a conversation with a couple people on there talking about how great, Russell Wilson is and how he's going to, he's an elite quarterback, and he's already one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, and he's going to be one of the great ones when it's all said and done. And I'm thinking, wow, after 2 years. And then he starts throwing out stats talking about how, Dan Marino's stats after 2 years, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, John Elway, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. I think I already said him, but anyways, he starts throwing out their stats after 2 years and starts comparing it to Russell Wilson as saying this is why he's going to be elite. Look at his 2-year stats compared to these guys. The only one that was, had a little bit better numbers was Marino. And I was like, wow. You're using an argument saying he's going to be better than these guys because this is where they were at 2 years and this is where Wilson's at. But those guys got much better over time. And who's to say, Wilson's not going to get even better? But those guys, kind of struggled the first couple of years and then took off in year 3 and beyond. Well, who's to say Russell Wilson, after 2 great years, doesn't stub his toe a little bit in year 3? You look at a guy like Kurt Warner, he had 2 huge years in St. Louis, 2 humongous years. Greatest show on turf, won the Super Bowl, and then part of it thanks to injuries, he comes back down to earth. And people are throwing those same terms out about him, future Hall of Famer, elite, franchise quarterback, and all those things. And then after his second year as a starter, he pretty much went downhill until he ended up in Arizona, where he started putting up decent numbers again. Well, just because he's putting up huge numbers right now in Russell Wilson, it doesn't mean he's going to do it for his entire career. And I just think the term gets thrown out there too much. And George Karl, former Milwaukee Bucks head coach, former Denver Nuggets head coach, and Seattle Supersonics coach, he was on a local show here yesterday saying that the term superstar, which I'm going to put in that same, category there is thrown around way too much in the NBA when there's probably only about 5 superstars in the NBA. So I just think people need to, slow down a bit before crowning someone the next great thing.
Well, if we look at the terminology, it's very general. Based on those terminologies, Evan, I can look at every athlete and I can make every athlete great. Because great is simply defined as a generalized term of approval. So every time a player has a good game and does their job, they're great, based on the definition, which I totally don't agree with. And a superstar, how do we explain somebody extremely famous? Is it based off the number of Twitter followers you have or the number of people that view your YouTube channel? In that instance, you and I are never going to be a superstar, which I could care less about. But
maybe someday.
Yeah, maybe someday we'll be superstars. Who knows? Well, at least we're superstars in our own mind, right? But it goes back to these very generalized terms, and people want to throw them out. And I think people can have a great game. I think people can have a great season. But to say that they're a great player is a body of work in my mind. And that goes with all 3 of these categories. Superstars, elite, great. How do we define them? I mean, if we look at elite, Evan, basically it's saying those that have the most wealth and status are elite. So if we go by that definition, we need to take a look at the top 3 or top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, or the top 5 of any position for that matter, because it says in society or group. So if you group every position and take the top 3 or 5 that are paid, that makes them elite. And honestly, that's a bunch of BS. Because I know Joe Flacco's in that group, and he is by no means an elite quarterback. And so that's where my beef is. If you go with that, are we basing it because they're getting paid a lot of money? That doesn't define elite to me. And I said this way back, and I had mentioned to you before the show. If anybody scrolls way back, and now we're up to, I believe, 164 episodes after today, Evan, you have to scroll way back, probably down into the 20s or 30s of the uploads to find this. But I did my in-car, on-the-home rant about the definition of elite. And to me, an elite player is somebody that makes everyone else around him better. That can take talent and make people better on a consistent basis. That's my definition. Now, again, I'm just the idiot with an opinion. That's how I define elite in my book. A superstar is just that great player. The guy that goes out there and is a great, great player that always can impact a game by himself. That's how I define superstar. And great, to me, the word great is something more or less a game situation. He had a great game, had a great season. I don't like to use the word as I guess you can say a great career, but I more or less look at the term great as that generalized term that I use more on a daily basis or on a contest basis. But, how do you define elite, Evan? What's your definition of elite?
Well, I think you pretty much nailed it right on the head where I'm going with it. Is somebody that's going to make the people around them better. And, you look around the league, there's only, in my opinion, a handful of guys that do that. You have you guys like Breeze, you have you guys like Rodgers, Manning. There's only a handful of guys, in my opinion, that do that at the quarterback position. And the running back position is even fewer. They got Adrian Peterson, I think, is about it at the running back position. And then you look at the NBA, you have you guys like Kevin Durant and LeBron James and Kobe Bryant when healthy that I would put in that elite category. And I think that's kind of going to be about it. Now, I think you pretty much nailed the definition right on the head. So I guess, based off that, what we're saying is somebody like Wilson be more of the superstar category right now than elite.
Well, and I don't even know if I put him in superstar yet because you hit it on the head. You can't, I don't think you can get these terms overnight. And so,
No, you can't.
by winning the Super Bowl, and this is where I have this problem. If I'm going to look, and the easiest comparison I have to Russell Wilson right now is Joe Flacco. Okay? And the reason is Joe Flacco, in my opinion, I could use and I could defend calling him great. Okay? Because he's done well. I can say he is maybe great, but he's not a superstar and he's not elite. But by getting his teams to the playoffs and doing those things, he wavers with that. And Wilson hasn't done anything other than what he was meant to do. And so if I look at the definition of what great is, a generalized term of approval, Russell Wilson has done that. So by that definition, you could call him great. But by no means have I put him into the superstar category or an elite category. And the thing is, he's only done it this year. So he's had some great games, but he's also had some games, Evan, going up to the playoffs that were not that great. And it wasn't Russell Wilson who won the game.
Yep.
It was the defense. So to me, in order to be in one of these categories, it has to be consistent. Day in, day out, game in, game out, that you're at that level. And that's part of it to me. Now, even an elite player will have a bad game. And a superstar will have a bad game. But it can't be a trend. And to be honest, Russell Wilson, what was it, the last 3 or 4 games, his passer rating was in the 70s? It wasn't just one game that he was bad. It was that whole last quarter of the season where he had to ride the shirt tails of his defense. So to put Russell Wilson into superstar status right now is crazy talk. It's just crazy. The guy had a successful season. The guy won the Super Bowl, and he made a couple plays in that game to keep drives alive and to score points. But by no means was it Russell Wilson that led them to the Super Bowl. And so I'm not even saying winning the Super Bowl makes you elite. So hopefully that makes sense with my rant.
It does. It does. And winning the Super Bowl definitely doesn't make you elite because you have guys like Brad Johnson and Trent Dilfer and whoever else. You know, Eli Manning's won 2. I wouldn't put him as elite. So Joe Flacco's won 1. So I wouldn't put them in the elite category at all. So it makes perfect sense. I just think us as, you know, fans and, you know, people in the media just have to, you know, stop with the throwing those out there because it's going to basically start watering down the terminology. Just because you do something great in one game, all of a sudden we got to call you an elite player. And as you just said, it has to be consistent.
Well,
we need to see more than just 2 seasons of it in order to put somebody in that category.
I agree with you 100%. It's watered down. It already is watered down. I mean, every time that there's a player that comes around, now we bring up this elite talk, right? Even with Manning going to the Super Bowl, does winning, you know, you and I even talked about it, his legacy last week on Saturday. Does it define his legacy? You know, and so the elite question, who are the elite quarterbacks? And it'll come up before training camp next year, Evan. It will always come up every year.
It does every year.
Who are the elite players? I mean, and like you said, for me, to be elite, it has to be a very special category. It's not special anymore. People throw the word elite around like you're saying superstar, and it's all based on what have you done for me lately. It's not based on a body of work, and it's irritating. I just laugh half the time. You know, because how are you going to define and who are you going to put in as your group? I'm just going to start using these are my top players. Because elite, superstar, and great are just getting thrown out there every day. You know, but to me, an elite is a consistent performer who on a regular basis makes people around him better. And that's over time. not in 1 year. And so to get to that level, for me, it takes a lot. And I don't think there's a lot of elite players out there. There's a lot of people, if I look at it, that we could throw in to the great category. And there's probably a handful that we can throw into superstar category. But I think there is a difference between superstar and elite. And I'll just reiterate that. An elite player is someone who makes players better around him or her. I mean, we can have female athletes that are elite. Superstars are individual efforts.
Lisa Leslie, for instance.
Exactly. And so in a superstar...
I think you see more superstars in basketball than you do in any other sport. So you just said it's more individual effort, because basketball is where you see the most individual efforts. You can have one guy can completely take over a game, a la Kevin Durant in Oklahoma City this year. He's pretty much doing it on his own because Russell Westbrook hasn't been healthy. So he's been pretty much doing it on his own.
Yeah, and I would have no argument putting Kevin Durant in the superstar category. And honestly, I would even waver about putting him into the elite category at this time because he's done it. He came in, he's been doing it, and I think him on the floor makes that team better. He makes people around him better because of the attention he warrants. And you look at his all-around game. He does make players better around him when they're on the floor. So you can put him up into that category. But there's very few of those players around. But we hear it every day. And, you know, when you brought it up, I was thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, you know what, Evan? You're absolutely right. You know, but I think the category of great players, that is a pretty large category because we look at any of the major sports. I think there's more than just a handful of great players. I mean, you can put a lot of people into that category and expand the definition. I'm not worried about generalized term of approval for a great player. I mean, a great player is that guy to me that can go and show really big signs of taking over a game but doesn't do it on a consistent basis. Maybe missing a piece to become a superstar. To me, that's a great player. The guy that's shown it a few times and then, you know, doesn't get to that next level. At least that's where I would put great. What do you think about that?
I think you nailed it on the head again. I think you... Perfect example you just gave.
Well, good. I'm glad you're agreeing with me today. You know, that's a good thing. You know, but... with that said, Bud, is there anything else that we want to throw out on this subject? I mean, do we want to get into players, or where do you want to take this? This is the Saturday rant where we just go off. Where do you want to take it now, Bud?
Well, I don't know if we have to really go into, you know, too many players and, you know, different things like that. I guess one thing, you know, it has been all over the news all day yesterday, and, you know, and the other one has been since last weekend is the whole... You know, because the NFL just came out with the report on the whole Miami Dolphins situation with Ricky Incognito and Jonathan Martin, and I don't know, just hearing about it and reading a little bit about it, I'm just appalled that this is actually going on in today's society, in today's NFL locker room. Just kind of shows you the lack of character that was in that locker room that would let it go on.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a really good point in the pre-show. The lack of leadership in that locker room really showed, and it's actually, to me, is despicable. Now, you and I were both former athletes. We were in a locker room. There's a lot of joking that goes around. There's a lot of ribbing that goes around. Hell, you and I rib each other, you know. But there's a certain line that you're not going to cross. You know, there's a difference between joking and bullying, and that's what I call it. And people might say, well, he just needs to grow up. Well, I disagree. It doesn't matter how old you are. You can bully someone. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you're right when you say they just need to grow up about the wrong person. I think Ricky Incognito and Ponce and Jones are the ones that need to grow up.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm right there. Both sides, you know. And the person in Incognito, You look at it, I mean, you can only take so much. We talked about this before with Marcus Smart. You can only take so much, and the thing is, different people react different ways. I mean, you and I will rib each other in a joking way, and we understand that. But there's a certain line that crosses into the bullying, and you're absolutely right. They need to grow up. And it doesn't matter if it's an NFL locker room. It doesn't matter if it's in your workplace or my workplace. And actually, my employees every year, Evan, need to take a compliance course, and it's just online, for sexual harassment and bullying in the workplace. Because it is a big problem, not just in the NFL. It's a big problem in society. Grown people bullying other people. There's no place for it. Now, I'm a very laid-back guy, and I like to crack jokes with the best of them and have fun. And you know what? I'm probably the one that gets picked on the most, and I'm okay with it. But there's a certain line that you don't cross. And those guys crossed it, and what really makes me mad is nobody stepped up to stop it. Nobody stepped up to stop
lack of leadership.
Stop the bullying. Well, somebody had to grow a set of kahunas in that locker room, Evan, and step up and do it. I mean, what was the problem? And I'll go personal. If that happened in my workplace, in my school, and somebody was getting bullied, I would hope one of my staff members, and I guess I'll go this way, has the balls to step up, Evan, and stop it. And if they don't want to stop it, then come to me as the director, and I'll go stop it. I'll put my foot down, and I will make sure it ends. But why didn't that happen? I mean, why didn't it happen?
The guy doing it, I mean, I said this pre-chat, the guy doing it was the leader. Incognito was the leader of that locker room. So when the leader of the locker room is doing it, who's to step up then? And, and you kind of go on what you're saying. Leroy Butler was on one of the local shows here yesterday, too, and they were talking about it. And he was saying that, Reggie White was that guy in the locker room that if there was any issues, you go to him and it's squashed immediately. It's done. And they don't have that guy in that locker room at all. Because, like I said, the guy who's supposed to be that guy was the one doing all this crap.
Well, I'll tell you what, Evan. I'll go back to my days playing. You might, and when I first got to college, there was a guy like that, but you've got to have a guy, like I said, that has to have the kahunas to be the other guy, the good guy, that's going to stop it. And if you don't have, and sometimes you need to have one to combat the other. And if you don't have the one, you need to go above that person's head. But what are people afraid of? Like I said, why don't you just go to the coach? Because if the coach is going to let it go on, then there needs to be a whole new coaching staff. But that just works me up right there to know that those things, go on. I don't know if I just have the wool over my eyes, but I don't think it happens in my workplace. If it did, I would hope that somebody would come to me so I can stop it. There's a lot of ribbing that goes on. I know that, and a lot of times I'm the one that's getting the most of it. And I'm okay with that. But at the end of the day, there's a respect level. There's a respect level amongst everyone that works, and there's just no respect in that locker room. And so, that's what I look at, just the lack of respect that's shown, and even the lack of respect for your teammate. To not stand up for him. I mean, sometimes people will join in, but you can tell when you've crossed a line. And you know what, Evan? I've been there, and I've apologized to people where I've taken it over the line, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't mean it that way. Hey, let's rewind the clock, and I'm sorry, and I won't let it happen again. I've been there. I'm not proud to say it, but I've been there, where I brought some of my ribbing a little bit too far, and you can tell the person is uncomfortable at that time, and common sense at that time tells you I need to back off. So that's about all I have on that, Evan. You have anything else to add, bud?
No, I don't really have anything else to add to that. I think, nailed it right in the head. The only thing I do want to add is the fact that you're talking about where were the coaches at? From my understanding, the offensive line coach knew about it and just sat on his hands and did nothing. And I hope, and I really hope, when now that this report is out, that if that is the case, then Philbin finds a new offensive line coach, because to have him know what was going on and how extreme it was, and just to sit on his hands, and then the head athletic trainer knew everything was going on as well, and one of his assistants was the person being ribbed as well. Like, there was one case on Pearl Harbor Day where they put headbands on that had like the Japanese flag on, talking about time, they're going to get even or something like that. So, and the head trainer let it go, and the offensive line coach let it go, and I think those two need to be without jobs right now.
Oh yeah, their butts need to be fired. It goes back to it, and you can look at your workplace. Again, I can look at my workplace, and in my role, I would be extremely upset if one of my staff members knew about it, took no action, number one, and didn't tell me, number two. And if they just kind of brushed it under the rug, I would make sure that there was some consequences to that, because there is no place in any workplace for what we consider bullying, and it's a problem. It's a huge problem, not only in the NFL, Evan, but in society as a whole. You see it all the time on the news. Kids getting bullying, people in the workplace getting bullying. This is just crazy. And it starts from the top.
You hear the extreme of it too, kids committing suicide and grown adults committing suicide because of it too.
Well, look at Martin. It affected him so much that he could not perform his job. And people may say,
he contemplated killing himself too on a couple of occasions.
Now again, like people, they'll throw the term out, whether, however you feel about this. I take that firm stand that if you can make somebody feel that negated about themselves, then you've done really, really wrong. Because ribbing can be taken the wrong way. But this,
crossed that line 10 times over.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy. I mean, to continue to take it that far. And I honestly hope nobody signs the guy. I mean, I hope that nobody signs him, because that's just crazy. He needs some help, because for a grown man to not understand that you are actually hurting somebody emotionally, that is just crazy, because he took it far beyond ribbing. So that's all I have to say about that, bud. I could just keep getting fired up about that. Just under 2 minutes to go. How we want to end the show today, bud?
Well, just let people know that Monday we're going to be giving a quick recap of the state of the NBA, where the NBA, like where they are right now, because it is All-Star Weekend. So talk about where the NBA is right now, and then talk about the
90 seconds
and which one do we prefer, like the most, and which one of the skill competitions do we like the most. So that's going to be going on Monday. So yeah. I guess that's all I need to say to end it, and thank the listeners for listening.
Yeah, as another rant.
Thank all of our guests that we had over the past couple of weeks as well.
Yeah, we've had some great guests, and just so you know, Evan, I haven't checked the show email yet, but as you know, we have credentials for the Johnstown Tomahawks. They are playing. God, that crazy lady drives me nuts, Evan, giving me the time. I know how much time is left. Stop it already. But the Tomahawks have a home-and-home series this weekend against the Michigan Warriors. I'm not able to make it down there, but they did win 5-0 last night. I am trying to get somebody from the organization on the show next week to explain to our listeners what the NAHL is and what the importance of the Johnstown Tomahawks are for these players. It's not the NHL, but it is a league that's a developmental type league, and I want to get somebody on the show to explain what the NAHL is all about. And I think our listeners will be very surprised about what kind of hockey is going on down in Johnstown. So I'm working on that for next week. But as you said, we've had a lot of great guests. I hope you guys enjoyed the rant today. We'll see you all at the next red light. Enjoy the weekend. We'll get back at you on Monday.